It's not a must-win game for Boston College, but it certainly feels like one.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black, and I'm the editor of Eagle Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. All right, Boston College and UNC, big game on Saturday, and as of course, we have a special guest today, Mitchell Wolfe of Eagle Insider. He's here every Friday to talk BC basketball, BC football. Mitch, how are we doing?
I was about to say you tricked me into talking about something I really don't want to talk about, but I'm doing good. Excited to talk about this game. I think this will be an interesting test for BC. I'm excited to watch it and talk about it.
So UNC, this is a game that we had circled earlier in the season when BC was playing hot as, and UNC was playing pretty poorly. Like, oh, this is kind of flipped to a game BC should win. But they have a special weapon that could be a real problem for BC, and I know you have a lot of thoughts on him. Let's talk about their star running back, Omarion Hampton.
Yeah, he's arguably the best player that BC will face all season. I think he's up there with Antoine Powell-Ryland. I think it's interesting to compare him to Bashal Tootin, the running back for Virginia Tech, because Tootin is a lot more explosive, straight line player. Obviously had those long runs against BC, and Hampton can certainly break off a big run, but he's not like that track speed that's going to, bust all those kind of runs. But he's very good as a receiver. He's a bigger back, so he can create a lot more physically. And he's still got good vision, some wiggle in the hole. And I tweeted this when I was watching UNC film that he reminded me a bit of Le'Veon Bell, running back for the Steelers. He doesn't have as much of that unique patience that Bell had behind the line of scrimmage, but he's still able to create a lot if the initial run isn't there. And UNC in most recent weeks is leaning harder on him. They're using more designed runs. They're using more downhill run schemes, namely duo, which is sometimes known as power without the puller. And it kind of looks like zone, but it's really more of a man scheme. And they've been using that run scheme a lot more in recent weeks, trying to take some of the workload off of quarterback Jacolby Criswell.
Yeah, let's talk about Criswell too. What kind of quarterback is he? I saw, I think it's CBS that rates their top 8 quarterbacks in the conference, and he's usually in there. What kind of quarterback is he? Like, what should we be expecting there from him?
Yeah, it's funny because I was looking him up, and so I went to his 247 page and found, like, as a high school prospect, first of all, he's from the class of 2020, which is the same class as Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, and he's been in college forever. But his comp out of high school was Sam Howell, which is very funny considering he came to UNC right at the time, like Sam Howell was ascending, so that was kind of funny. But as a player, it's hard because, like, he's been pretty good for them. Like, he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I think he only has 3 picks. I think he has 4 fumbles maybe, so not really a problem there. He's mobile, but not like a great runner. He has a good arm, but not a great arm. He's decently accurate. So it's kind of like there isn't. I wouldn't say there's anything he does like great. But the interesting about the UNC offense is they're unlike a lot of college offenses in that they very aggressively throw in the intermediate part of the field. And what I mean by that is between 10 and 19 air yards downfield. You think about teams like Syracuse, they were a lot of throwing the ball short, 1 to 9 yards downfield. Virginia Tech was a lot of behind the line of scrimmage or chuck it deep. And a lot of teams don't like that middle of the field area because quarterbacks, they struggle to read that. That's where they have a lot of turnover-worthy plays. But that's really where Criswell does well, pun not intended, but in that they do a lot of play action, then they want crossing routes over the middle. And he's mobile enough where they can roll him out of the pocket on design bootlegs. And if the pocket breaks down, which it quite often does for UNC, their offensive line is pretty suspect. He's able to extend the play, scramble around, and at least throw it away and avoid a sack. So that's, he's been around in college forever, so he knows what he's doing. And again, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but the ceiling of the offense is somewhat limited.
Now, after Phil Luongo went to Wisconsin, where he just got canned, they've gone away from that kind of air raidish offense, right? They're kind of doing.
It's not like an air raid RPO super like that offense. Like they still do a lot of screens, a decent amount of RPOs, but they use a lot more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, and they're actually still doing that a lot, even though their tight end slot hybrid Bryson Nesbitt went down for the season a few weeks ago, which that's very good for BC. It sucks for Nesbitt, but he's a very good player, and now he's out for the year. So they don't really have a really dynamic receiving weapon outside of Nesbitt. He was kind of like the number one guy, and then everybody else was kind of able to fill in around him. But now everybody's getting bumped up a notch. So you're seeing more of J.J. Jones. He's more of an outside deep threat. Their tight end, John Copenhaver, who basically replaced Kamari Morales there. He's probably the most consistent weapon. Slot receiver Nate McCollum he has had a weird year this year because he's had 2 incredible games against Pitt and sorry. Oh yeah, Pitt and Virginia. And I believe the reason why is because those teams use more base. They use a bigger nickel, and he's a short, quick slot receiver, so he's able to take advantage of the matchup. Outside of those 2 games, he hasn't done really anything. And again, really, this whole offense is based around Omarion Hampton. He's big in the passing game as well, mostly on checkdowns and screens, but they use him a lot. One play that I'm sure they're going to run is they run this play where they put 4 receivers out wide and they run them downfield, and then they run this little like shovel screen, almost like a halfback draw, but it's a screen to Hampton where he'll kind of leak out, turn around, and the quarterback will just shovel the ball right to him in front of him. And especially with how the weather looks on Saturday, I imagine that they're going to try to, kind of keep the passes relatively short because I think it's going to be raining hard, be cold, and be pretty windy.
Now let's talk a little bit about the defense. UNC's defense under Jeff Collins, former Georgia Tech head coach, definitely looks improved over years past, but I still think I never think of the Tar Heels in recent years, especially under Mac Brown, as having a great defense. What is this defense like this year, and what are their strengths and weaknesses?
Their strength is their pass rush, and that's really where the be all end all is. They are not super aggressive when it comes to blitzing. I think they only blitz like 24% of opponents' dropbacks, which I think is maybe like 86 or something. It's not very high, but Collins is very good at designing and using these exotic, unique fronts, then using simulated pressures, which we've talked about a few times, where the defense only rushes 4, but they'll put a lot of guys on the line, and then they'll drop some out, bring others to kind of confuse the offense. And he's really good at designing those. On the defensive line, Kyman Rucker is their edge rusher. He's a name to watch. He's, again, probably, it's him, Antoine Powell, Ryland, and Ashton Gelati. They're all like elite pass rushers that BC has faced, and he's right up there with them. He missed a lot of time this season, and he kind of came back and wasn't really healthy. Last few weeks, he's been on an absolute tear. And granted, it's been against Virginia, Florida State, and Wake Forest, and not exactly a murderer's row, but he's been awesome lately. And they've got other guys around him, defensive end Desmond Evans, Bo Atkinson. And the other thing that's interesting is they've got a few very big nose tackles in Kevin Hester, Joshua Harris, and Travis Shaw. These are very, very big defensive tackles. So I'm interested to see how BC tries to attack them when they have Drew Kendall, who's a somewhat smaller center. But in terms of results, it's been kind of weird with UNC's defense. Like their sacks have been very fluid. Like in 2 of the last 3 games against Virginia and Florida State, they had 17 sacks in those 2 games. And other than that, and then that's half of their sacks this entire season. So that was kind of almost an outlier. On the back end, Elijah Huzzy is a great cornerback. He's also a very good return specialist. And their 2 linebackers, Power Eccles and Amari Campbell, are 2 pretty solid players.
All right. In a moment, Mitch and I are going to talk about what BC has to do to win this game. What are the weaknesses they can expose, and what do you expect to see BC do to try to really take advantage of UNC? We'll get into that in just a moment. Now, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It's the daily platform with an injury insurance policy. I love Prize Picks. It's so easy to use. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my pick hits, I can get my money as quick as 15 minutes. Now offers Venmo. You can get your Venmo money out of Prize Picks and easily deposit and withdraw into your account this sports season. So check out Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here with Mitchell Wolfe, and we are talking about this upcoming game. But if you want to talk more about all ACC games, check out Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. I know a lot of you guys have very opinion views on what they say on Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Mitch, you've watched some of this film. You've analyzed UNC. What does BC have to do to win this game?
They pretty much just need to play their brand of football, and that means running the ball really well, establishing that, and especially getting into the fourth quarter when they can kind of break the opponent's will. And they need to create turnovers on defense. UNC's offense has been a bit inconsistent. They've been pretty high scoring, but that's sometimes because they've been in shootouts or just blowing out inferior teams. Against a team like Duke, they didn't really score that much, and they really struggled in the second half of that game. So that's been a key for BC. Like when they've been able to turn the other team over multiple times and not turn it over a bunch themselves, they've been able to win games. So that's a huge thing. In terms of BC's offense, I think that UNC's defense is kind of similar to the ones they faced in the last few weeks, at least schematically, in that their run defense numbers are pretty good. Maybe a little above average, but again, I think that's more of a result of game script and not necessarily their quality. That said, like I mentioned, their interior defensive line is really big. I'm wondering if they're going to play more base against BC, especially with BC running so much, 12 personnel with 2 tight ends and extra offensive linemen. So that'll be interesting. I think BC can do it. I don't think UNC's really faced a team that wants to run the ball as decisively as BC does. So this is kind of, we've seen BC go crazy on the ground against a bad run defense. In Syracuse, we've seen them do well against a really good run defense against SMU. So in theory, they should be able to do well against UNC's, kind of solid run defense. In terms of what BC's defense needs to do, it's going to be tough because, we don't really know the status of cornerbacks Max Tucker and Bryquise Brown. So BC could be really scraping the bottom of the barrel of the depth chart there. Unsure about Cam Arnold's status. It'd be great to get him back because, again, Omarion Hampton is that entire offense. BC needs to limit him. And I do say that, but with the caveat that this guy is an elite player. If Ashton Genty wasn't around, this guy would be getting a lot more pub because he's probably the best running back in the Power 5 right now. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, this guy, if he like went to the NFL tomorrow, he would probably be a starting running back, or at least in like a fairly equal timeshare on like 12 NFL teams. Like he is a really, really, really good player. So he's gonna probably have a decent game, and BC fans should be prepared for that. Like this isn't some scrub running back. They're just saying like this is a guy who's a really, really talented player. He's probably gonna give BC some issues. The area where BC I think can make some hay is pass rush, and obviously BC's pass rush in terms of getting pressure has been pretty inconsistent this year. But UNC's offensive line is pretty bad, especially at the tackles. They are 115th in pressure rate allowed at 37.4%. They're only allowing 2 sacks per game, which is tied for 67th, so dead center average in FBS. And I mentioned that Criswell is pretty good at evading those pressures. But if you look at their tackles, the left tackle, Howard Sampson, is a transfer from North Texas, and he was pretty bad to start the season, but has gotten better recently. The other tackle, Trevion Green, started off better, but he has been really struggling in the last few weeks. He got the dreaded 0.0 pass blocking grade according to PFF against Duke. And he's giving up sacks, pressures, he's committing penalties. Like I think given him how BC aligns their edge rushers, I think they're going to put Ezeraku on Sampson, who, I think you want to put the best pass rusher on their best tackle, because I think even like Quintavious Hutchinson and Nadewek Pala, they've been kind of inconsistent, but they can have success against a tackle that's struggling that bad. So BC needs to get pressure, which they've really struggled at, and convert those into sacks, which is something they've been, I would say, inconsistent with. And Criswell can move. I'm hoping that the rain and the wet conditions will slow him down a bit. But if BC can do that and get pressure, which can, even if you just get him to throw the ball away, you can force UNC into long and late downs where Hampton is not as much of a threat. Because if they keep getting into 2nd and 4s, 3rd and 2s, they're just going to keep running Hampton, and he's going to do what BC's offense needs to do to UNC's defense.
So there's to kind of follow up with what Mitch was saying, there's some injuries to watch for. I haven't really talked about him on the podcast earlier this week. As he mentioned, Bryquise Brown and Max Tucker, the cornerbacks, are both day-to-day. I don't know what that means. Bill's never clear on that. We don't know what's going on with Cam Arnold.
Schrodinger's injury report.
Yep. We do know that Jaden Skeet will miss the game. He didn't give us an update on what it is. I would be surprised.
I'm pretty sure it's a hamstring or something related to that, because when he walked off the field, that's kind of what he was like grabbing at. And I could be wrong, but that's kind of like what it looked like, on the film. But that's very much speculation.
And I know folks have been asking about Jerron Bradley too, and he said he was sick.
said he was, I believe he said he was sick. I changed it to battling an illness, and I was just like, oh, like just suck it up. And I think that in this case, if you think about, I don't exactly, obviously, I don't know what he has, but if you think about being sick, like you don't want a guy who has an illness coming to practice, drinking out of a communal water bottle, going to
Spreading
meetings,
it all.
hanging out. Exactly. So if he probably got whatever he had, and they said stay home, get healthy, and obviously it's been a few weeks, so it's like he's been sick for a while, but if you think about it, if he's sick, he's also probably missing meetings. He's not practicing, so he's not as informed of the game plan, which is why I was told that he has dressed for the last 2 games. But if he's not in the meetings because he's being sick, then that explains why he's not playing. I also want to bring up before we move on.
Before you
Go ahead,
you bring that up, you were bringing up illness. All you have to remember was I think it was Wake Forest a couple years ago when half the team was sick with the flu.
Yep, right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was around
21.
this time. So yeah, we don't need that to happen again.
Yeah. So 2 things. So one, UNC is pretty bad in penalties. They commit 7.2 per game, which is tied for 106th, and 53.4 penalty yards per game, which is tied for 84th. So that's pretty bad. Also, I'm not going to say that their special teams is as bad as BC's because their return game is pretty good, but their punting, they rank 129th in yards per punt at 38.6 and 125th in net yards per punt at 35.6. So their punting is really bad. Their field goal kicking has been pretty inconsistent. They've only made 3/4 of their field goals. Again, glass houses, we can't really cast aspersions. So that's something that could affect this game. Although, again, UNC's returners, Elijah Huzzy does he does punts, and Nate McCollum does kicks, and they're both really good at that. So that's something that BC's gonna have to watch out for.
And we're going to talk about our predictions for Boston College and UNC. We're going to pick the Eagles to win. You'll have to hear what we have to say in just a moment. Now, ZBiotics pre-alcohol prebiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotic your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel better in the morning. Look, I won't lie. I have been on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but when I tried it out, it was amazing. No hangovers, nothing like that. And I've heard a lot of good stories from friends who have tried this as well. So here you go. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. Step 2, drink responsibly. For step 3, enjoy tomorrow. So go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to the zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. All right. Now it's time to talk FanDuel. And Mitch, we are kind of running short on time today. And I want to just get one of your picks. So let me get into this. So get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can get $5 to $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats for you live by play. Mitch, before we get into the college bets, are you picking the Steelers to win? We're recording this on Thursday night. They're going to beat the Browns?
They're going to beat them for. I feel pretty confident in that. I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns cover. It looks like terrible weather, a lot of winds, even snowing there apparently. So Steelers' advantage in field goals might be taken away, but Browns are just a dumpster. I mean, I say now they're a dumpster fire. The Browns have been a dumpster fire for my entire lifetime. So I'm expecting the Steelers to pull this one out and continue their winning ways.
So my one pick that we're going to make this week is an interesting one that I thought of, and I was like, is SMU at Virginia, 10-point SMU spread. They're -10. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is interesting. I mean, these are 2 teams that like to throw the ball around a good bit. I'm going to take SMU in this one. I think they're going to bounce back. BC kind of gave them a pretty tough game. They were in it to the very end. Obviously, made a 10-point game in the final seconds, but I think Virginia's they're kind of starting to weeble wobble a bit. So I think SMU takes care of business and wins this one big.
All right. If you like our thoughts on this, you too can do that by going with get started on FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, joined by Mitchell Wolfe, both of Eagle Insiders. Thank you all for joining us, and make sure to check out Locked On College Football when you're done with this podcast with the playoffs and lots of griping about the playoff rankings. I personally don't care, but a lot of people seem to. I guess it's because we're not involved in it. I could probably, if BC was involved in rankings, I would probably have 5 days worth of episodes. But when I see Clemson fans and Miami fans and Texas fans all complaining,
all the best people that we love to hear
complaining. I'm just like mute, shut up. But anyways, that's just me. Now check out Locked On College Football wherever you get your podcasts if you're interested in that kind of stuff. They do talk a lot of, and with coaching changes, that's where I find interesting some of the coaching changes stuff going on out there. So let's do our predictions, Mitch. BC, it's depending on where you're looking, the spread's different. I've seen Pick'em. I've seen UNC by like as much as 3 at different places.
You've seen Pick'em, wow.
Where did I see? I thought I saw it on FanDuel. But I know it's changed since then.
Yeah, yeah.
But what are your thoughts on this?
I'm gonna say BC wins this one, and I'm not super confident in. I think this game is going to be one of those ones that really comes down to 3 to 5 plays. I think a special teams gaffe could have really flipped this game. I think BC wins 28-24. I think they're going to be able to run the ball well. I don't think either team is going to score a lot. It's supposed to be a rainy, cold day in New England. I do think that on UNC's side, they just got to bowl eligibility, beat Wake Forest in a close game. It's Wake Forest, but it's an in-state rival. Next week they go back and they're going to play NC State in a big rivalry game. I think they could be overlooking BC a bit. Going up to Boston in late November, bad weather game. They're like, I don't really feel like giving my all. So I think I could see that happening. And I think BC, obviously has a lot more to fight for at this point. So I think BC is going to win this one. I think it'll be close. And though I know we did picks, but there's one thing I do want to give out because I love this bet is BC alt line plus 8.5 and under 61.5. Parlay those, you get plus money. You get covered if BC misses an extra point and they lose by a touchdown, and you get a lot of room with that 8.5. And the over under I think is currently at 56.5. So you're getting a lot of room there. I don't think either team scores 30. So that's my Mitch Wolfe nuclear arsenal megalodon lock of the space-time continuum bet that is guaranteed, but also not guaranteed for legal reasons.
Right. It's for entertainment purposes.
Yes, exactly.
So I swear I don't talk with Mitch ahead of time. I guess we've been writing together and recording together too long because I literally had written down my score being 28-24. And I was thinking to myself, because I went with...
They're definitely not going to
win. I went with UNC kicking like the bend don't break in the red zone. I feel like BC will hold them maybe once or twice to a field goal.
Yeah,
I have no faith in BC scoring any extra point, like any field goals. So 4 touchdowns.
I was even saying, like, because of the weather, I would honestly consider just going for 2 after every touchdown because cold hands, wet ball, don't even risk it. Like, you've got a good run game. You could have some designer plays in the red zone, do something else because at least you're being aggressive and you're trying to get something, and that could kind of throw UNC off their game. So I don't think that'll happen, but maybe it will, and that could be interesting.
I'm terrified of special teams in this game.
Oh yeah,
it's just with weather. I mean, even last week with it was at least one extra point where they just botched the snap and luckily got it through.
Yeah,
it's just terrifying. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. You can check out my work at Eagle Insider. We had the matchup report this week. We had the 3-weekly preview come out today with that same prediction and a few other interesting nuggets about the game and that bet that I just gave out. That's pretty much it. They're getting down to the final few weeks. Luckily, after the Pitt game next week, I'll be going on vacation, so I will take a few days to not think about DC football while I'm abroad.
While you're abroad, I will be jam-packed with transfer portal news, where things will get really busy for me. But you can check me out on Twitter, on Eagle Insider as well. I will have a 3 things I think and 3 things I know tomorrow about recruiting and football. You'll have that. We have a ton of basketball coverage. I have women's basketball coverage up on the site now. Hopefully women's hockey coming up and men's hockey. I mean, if you want BC news and covered wall to wall, we got it over there. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247, and I'll be back again on Saturday afternoon after the game, live from the press box to do a post game on Eagle Locked On Boston Postcasts. If you want to check that out live, I'll be giving my thoughts up in the press box. For Mitch, this is AJ. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.